I think there's this idea that is often unstated and unchallenged that it's more, it's dangerous to not be, to kind of be under concerned. If we underestimate the risks, then we're not going to do enough about it, and that's really dangerous. Whereas if we overestimate the risks, then, you know, maybe we'll fix the planet and it won't matter, you know, and it won't matter, but we fix the planet, great, right? And I think
What about
that's
gas prices have to say about that?
well, that's a short-term point that I think is relevant, and but let's take an even bigger a bigger picture view of this. You know, there have been some pretty awful atrocities committed on behalf of you know, concerns about environmental catastrophes that turned out to be wrong. So, you know, I think one of the most prominent examples of this would be the one-child policy in China, which, you know, caused the disappearance of millions of girls. And it was in large part motivated by books like The Population Bomb by Paul Ehrlich in the late 60s, which had some predictions like, I think one of his predictions was, you know, 65 million Americans were going to die of starvation by the year 2000. The UK might cease to exist. I think the first sentence of the book was something like, "The battle to feed humanity is over," meaning we've lost. And then there was a similar book by this group called the Club of Rome that came out a few years after that. You know, and so that was an atrocity, right?
Yeah.
That you know, that was, there's a direct line to environmental catastrophism. More broadly, I think there's much more danger than people realize in naive idealism, right? So if you want an environmental example of that recently, look at what's going on in Sri Lanka, where one of the big drivers of their current economic and food security crisis that's toppled their government is that their Berkeley educated president decided that he was going to ban synthetic fertilizers.
Yeah.
Because, you know, organic is the future.
In the
And lo and
Netherlands too,
behold,
right? That's happened in Holland too. Something along those lines, something similar with like the farmers. There's something going on where like police are arresting farmers for that's some sort of fertilizer they're using that's not sustainable, something along those lines.
you know, I want to say I've seen occasional tweets or headlines about that, but I don't know much about what's going on there. But I'm guessing that it's not, you know, mass food insecurity and dramatic increases in poverty for millions of people, which is what's happening in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
So, you know, and if you want to take a broader view than just the environment, the Great Leap Forward, maybe the single deadliest thing that's ever happened in human history, was this program by Mao in China to try to industrialize but also collectivize agriculture, and didn't work. And depending on, you know, what estimates you believe, 20 to 50 million people starved. You know, for comparison, I think the Nazi Germany killed something like 12 million people.
Yeah.
Right. So so the idea that, you know,
There's
that
no harm.
alarmism is, now there is danger in underestimating, like if we don't do something about the climate, that is dangerous, right? So there is danger in not being considered enough, but I don't think that it's super straightforward to argue that being not concerned enough is worse than being, you know, alarmist. And I also think that the idea that being, you know, naively idealistic and not doing your homework on the details is somehow righteous is just incredibly ahistorical and frankly self-indulgent. And one of the things that, you know, I talked about in the talk that you saw is the demographics of people in the US who adopt extreme positions on both sides of the aisle are disproportionately privileged people. They're disproportionately educated, rich white people. And so the idea that, you know, militant, naive extremism is somehow in service to the most marginalized is wrong. And I think more people should find it offensive.